I am Lawrence Chuno, and this is Doing Jazz. Hello everyone and welcome to Doing Jazz. My name is Lawrence Chuno and this episode is with guitarist and composer Ben Euson. Ben has worked with many big names in the music industry, including Terri Lyne Carrington, Queen Latifah, Wrght, Questlove, and many more. When I hear Ben play, I hear a unique talent. I hear years of hard work. I hear years of dedication. And I hear a deep love for the art of music. I must say that all these attributes came across on this episode. I really enjoyed our conversation, and Ben's warm and kind personality made it flow effortlessly. The song playing in the background is called Winter Song. It's off Ben Euson's EP titled Autumn. After listening to this episode, you can learn more about Ben Euson by going to the website of the podcast, www.doingjazz.net. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I present Ben Euson. In your face. Alright, so let's do it.
Okay, cool.
Ben Euson.
Yeah.
Welcome to Doing Jazz.
And thanks so much for having me, Lawrence.
Right, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
So I've been listening to your stuff. You came in right right on time. You caught me listening to it. Yeah. But I also went through your resume and I'm really impressed. The people you've worked with Queen Latifah.
I have, yeah.
Wow. You worked with Terri Lyne Carrington.
Yep.
You worked with Wrght.
Yep.
And so many others.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start with that.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Can you talk about one of your best experiences or one remarkable experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely playing in Terri Lyne Carrington's band for quite some time was an amazing experience, you know. Terri is someone that I looked up to and still look up to, you know, as a musician and, you know, for everything that she does. And I first heard her when I was about 14 on a John Scofield album. And, you know, being a guitarist, of course, you know, I wanted to check out John Scofield. And she was on this album Flat Out. And I sort of researched her, as I do with most people when I first finding out about musicians, you know, and got to know her music. And when I first came to Boston when I was 21, her band was the first band that I heard live, you know. And I thought it was such an amazing group, and I thought, gee, I'd love to play with this band one day, you know.
Wow.
The Mosaic Project. And then
you played on that album?
I didn't play on the album, no, but I did play with the band when it toured, you know.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
And but I believe there are 2 albums under the name of the Mosaic Project, and I played in the band for that, and you know, with that group I got to play fantastic music with some of the greatest musicians on earth.
Tia Fuller
was in the band,
Tenica Postman, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Diane Reeves.
That's right.
And
played
of
Diane.
course, Terri Lyne Carrington. I remember that album. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you toured with her.
I did with Terri for that album. Yeah, we let me think. Yeah, we went all over the world, honestly.
Yeah, that album did really well, I think, and she had everybody on the album. She had Diane Reeves,
Yeah.
Esperanza Spalding.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
some other great musicians. Wow, you've been places.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Terri has sort of played with everyone, you know. I mean, and she herself has had an amazing career, and it was just, I learned a lot, needless to say, playing with her.
Yes.
And not just about playing, you know. I learnt about going on the road and stuff like that, you know, which I guess when you're younger and you're playing in clubs and stuff like that, people don't tell you about that so much. You have to
figure that out yourself.
Exactly.
By doing it, And you never learn that. You never learn about that in a conservatory.
You sure don't. You don't. No. So getting to do that is fantastic. Yeah,
nice.
A great time.
Wow. And you seem to have a great command of your instrument. Like, you really know your instrument, and that gives you flexibility. Like, when I watch you play, I'm like, okay, this guy knows everything. Every note he plays, even if he's soloing, he anticipates it. He knows where it's coming from in his body, you know. I'm really interested in how you practice, even though I'm not a guitarist, but I mean, I'm sure somebody out there will gain something from how you practice, and any musician at all.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I mean, I think practice is, in a way, it's something that you have to sort of figure out
for yourself.
You know, I'll elaborate on that, because I would never tell that to a student. If I had a student, I would never tell them, figure it out for yourself. No, but
no, like, you mean, what I mean is, like, figure out, like, keep practicing until you get a routine that works for you. That's what I'm talking about.
That's a better way of putting it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think what I mean to say is finding your weaknesses and being sort of honest with yourself about what your weaknesses are. And, you know, something that can help you in that is definitely having a good teacher or several teachers who will who are prepared to be honest with you. That definitely helps, you know. And I'm really fortunate to have had a number of teachers who were quite honest with me over the years. But I think if you can zero in on what your weak areas are, that can be a really big help. And then consequently you can construct like a practice routine that focuses on those areas. You know, like if you are playing a solo, for example, and you think, wow, you know, I mean, I really messed up that arpeggio that I was trying to voice lead between this chord going to that chord.
Yeah.
You know? Then maybe you need to spend a couple of hours in a given day just on voice leading between chord changes, you know. And other than that, I think that a great thing to do is to research other players and research what their musical languages involve, you know.
Yeah. Which players have you researched?
Sure. Well, a lot, actually. I mean, as a guitar player, I'm, you know, unquestionably influenced by a lot of guitar players.
Yes, yeah.
And when I was younger, when I was a teenager, you know, about 13 years old or something like that, and I was just getting into jazz, you know, 12, 13, it was undeniably Pat Metheny, John Scofield, George Benson, also people like Robin Ford. You know, definitely they were people I listened to in the guitar world.
Yeah.
You know, that had a big influence on me. As time went on, I sort of realized that I was copying those musicians, you know, in a way that sort of made me feel uncomfortable. So I really wanted to find my own way of playing.
Yeah. So
then from there on, I really started listening to a lot of piano players and saxophone players.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I sort of, for a minute, I wanted to become a saxophone player when I was in my mid-teenage years, because I just was, I thought, man, I wish I could do what saxophone players do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up listening to a lot of obviously definitely John Coltrane, a lot of Joe Henderson, Michael Brecker, Chris Potter, Joe Lovano, Dave Liebman. You know,
you've worked with Dave Liebman too.
I played with Dave Liebman a fair bit actually. When I lived in Boston, I played with him quite a number of times at Wally's Jazz Club, which is a regular sort of place to play when you're in Boston. Yeah.
Wow, you've done a lot. Done a lot. Wow.
Yeah, thanks.
So, what do you work on now when you practice?
That's a very.
I'm like curious to know.
No, it's a great question. You know, I still have a routine of things that I go to. I've discovered that as you get a little older, at least for myself, I guess I can only really speak for myself. You know, that in terms of practice, you know, as your life changes and as your musical commitments change and the people you play with, you know, the things you practice change as well. I definitely still start my day with sort of a warm-up of like various arpeggios and scales and things, which I do for about an hour and 30 minutes, you know. And I still transcribe people, you know. Not as much as I used to, because I seem to have...
Other people's solos.
Yeah, other people's solos,
Wow.
yeah. Like still saxophone players.
Oh.
But I not as much as I used to, because I seem to have a little less time to do
that.
But also certain concepts, like harmonic concepts, like you know, stuff that I can practice, which after a period of time will come out in my playing on the bandstand.
That's one thing about music. You would never know. You never know when it's gonna come out when you're practicing. I mean, it's kind of seem gruesome and difficult and tedious when you're doing it, but when it starts coming out, you know, it might be 1 year down the line, you see some of the things you've practiced come out in unrelated music.
Exactly.
You know?
I mean, it's really fascinating how the brain works in regard to that, and just how you process music especially when you're improvising. You know, musical ideas, how they come out. It's kind of unpredictable.
True. Do you sometimes have to relearn some of your songs?
Yeah.
After playing other people's songs for a while?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a funny thing, isn't it? I mean, this is something I had to learn for myself that I guess no one told me. And maybe this is just true for me. I haven't talked about it with too many people. Is that, you know, when I write a piece of music, you know, you can't necessarily play it right away just because you put it down on paper. Sometimes you got to really sit down and think, how am I going to play this? You know, I wrote this. How am I going to play it?
I know, yeah.
You know,
that happens to me.
No, it happens to me too. It sounds perhaps like a silly thing now. I've mentioned it, but it's you know, you write music, you really do have to spend time with your own music.
Yes, definitely. I've learned that. And you'll be shocked. I just actually learned that after writing a song, I have to really sit down and learn that song note for note, slowly, and really internalize each note of that song, you know. But when you're a songwriter, when you're a composer, when you're composing, you have everything in your head. You're thinking of your melody, you're thinking of the chords, you're thinking of the musicians who are going to play this song, you're thinking of all the different parts. So by the time you finish putting everything together, sometimes you downplay the parts that you have to do yourself, you know, and you end up maybe being the weak link sometimes, you know, when you start trying to put the things together and then you discover, oh, I really have to go learn this stuff and nail it. At least that's my experience. That's what I've experienced, you know.
I can relate to that completely. I mean, I think especially because there's such an emphasis placed on learning other people's music when you're working with other people.
Especially exactly when you work with other people, you know,
which is very important. If
Yes,
someone
yeah.
asks you to play with them, you should learn their
yes,
music.
you should know their music. Yeah,
but
I don't have to deal with that. I hardly sing other people's music or play other people's music. So I just play my own stuff.
Yeah.
That's all I have time for. So
no, that's fair enough. I just it's just funny to me. It's it's important to spend time and make sure that you know how to play the ideas that come out of your head.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely go over stuff even in just in my general playing. I mean, I do certain things that fall under the category of maintenance practice for me. You know.
Okay. That's a nice little term, maintenance practice.
Maintenance practice, yeah. Yeah, you know, especially if you're traveling or something like that, and you have, you know, a little more limited time to practice than you otherwise would. You know, you need to make sure that certain aspects of your playing are in good form in order for you to perform.
Yes. Wow. This is a random question that just came to my head.
Sure. Yeah.
Is there any rituals you do before going on stage?
Rituals I do before going on stage. That is a great question.
Like any kind of quick warm up that, like, if you run out of ideas, you just say, okay, I'm gonna do this quick warm up before going on stage.
I do a quick warm up before I go on stage. Usually, in a best case scenario, I try to be practicing usually a lot of the day before a performance.
I see. Okay.
I guess the guitar is an instrument where, unlike, for example, a trumpet, you can play it for extended periods of time without, you know, really wearing yourself out too much. You know, like I know horn players talk a lot about conserving their embouchure, you know, making sure that they have enough strength to get through a show and not practicing too much in the day before the show and stuff like that. But I guess guitarists or players of stringed instruments, I should perhaps say, have a little more, you know, a little more of a chance to just keep playing all day. So I do a bit of a warm up before I go on stage, but my main thought is to sort of be peaceful before I go on stage. I like, if I can, I like to sort of have calm, you know, before I go on stage.
I like that. Yeah. I've not figured that out for myself, like a ritual, but I discovered that being by yourself, like being calm, really helps. You know, it kind of helps get things together, you know. Yeah, that definitely helps me. I really try to do that. It doesn't always become something that's doable, but if I get the opportunity, that really helps. Yeah. Nice. Let's talk about your music.
Yeah.
I was listening to your EP. Yeah. What's it called again? Autumn. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Whenever I listen to a musician I try to pick my favorite track. It doesn't mean that I don't like the other tracks, but the one that I really relate to is Winter Song.
funny, you know, a lot of people have come to me and said that that was their favorite song off the recording, which I'm really glad if people feel that way. I mean, the recording Autumn was sort of a collection of songs that I wrote, you know, when I was sort of 18 and 19, and then in my early 20s, and I was 24 when I recorded it. I'm 27 now, but I felt like my playing was just on the cusp of changing at that time.
I see.
And you know, going to whatever the next point
phase.
the next phase, yeah, whatever that may be. You know? And I sort of wanted to document all the stuff that had come before that, and so it was a small collection of of songs from those years previously, you know, and it was just a bit of a journey, you know. I mean, for me, all those songs were written throughout different times of my life when I lived in different places, and I'm glad we got to document it.
Yes, yeah. And they were really nicely done.
Thanks.
Yeah. Then the songs, like that song, the melody starts very prosaic, like nothing too poetic, you know.
Sure.
But then it gets intense, it builds up, and after a while you hear the intricacies in the composition, which is one of the reasons I asked, do you ever go back and try to relearn your songs? Because those songs, they seem like pretty hard, difficult songs to play, like the way you put them together.
Yeah. I mean, I just definitely I do with those songs. I will say about those songs though that I've played them for so long that I can sort of get back into playing them with relative ease.
I see.
You know, compared to some other things. But yeah, I mean, I just I'm glad that moment was captured, and I sort of I look back on that recording now thinking, wow, that feels like a long time ago. We recorded it in February 2014, and it was we went out to the studio in New Jersey to do it, and there was a blizzard that day that we recorded it, and certainly getting to Jersey was quite difficult.
Yeah.
And I took the NJ Transit bus out there, you know, and it was
with your guitar?
With my guitar, and you know, stood waiting at a bus stop with this massive snow falling down, freezing. You know? And then it finally got to the studio, and we recorded from about 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. and it all came together quite nicely.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
I wasn't sure what to expect, but but I'm certainly glad we did it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's this question I usually ask instrumentalists who compose and release their own stuff.
Yeah.
How do you name your songs?
Ooh, that's a hard one. That's a struggle. That's a real struggle.
Yeah, because you have these beautiful names. I mean, sometimes some listeners just take the name for what it is. Some other listeners try to find out what makes the artist give this song this name, because there's no lyrics. Yeah, you know. Yeah. So like a song like Winter Song, I could gradually come to develop my own reason why somebody would call that song a winter song, you know. But is there a general rule? Is there a way that how you pick your names?
Yeah, you know, I mean, naming instrumental compositions is a difficult task at times. You know. However, I think what I try to do is I try to think of a collection of words or a singular word that sort of reflects some kind of mood that could be associated with the piece of music. And something that I really like is when instrumental music has what I think of as like a cinematic sort of. I'm trying to think. The title resonates with you in a sort of cinematic manner, like it evokes imagery. And one of the beauties of instrumental music for me is that whatever that image is that is represented through the words and the sound of the music, it sort of is different for every person. Yes. The imagery that it conjures up within your mind,
Yes.
So what I try to think of is, something that sort of evokes a degree, some sort of imagery in your mind potentially that matches the atmosphere presented by the song itself, And sometimes that's easier said than done.
Song.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It's difficult, but I think that when you do find the right words to sort of capture the mood of the song, it can be quite powerful,
Yes.
I do think the title is important.
Yes.
But it is hard, So all of the songs on my EP Autumn sort of just reflected various moments in my life, that I know what that all represents. But with a bit of luck, those titles can maybe evoke a different image for a different listener.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the first song on that recording is called Lonely City. And for me, on a personal level, I wrote it about moving to or living in Boston.
Yes.
Of course, nothing against Boston. I had a great time living there. But purely the notion of feeling sort of transient as a person who had come from somewhere else. And I didn't really have any family ties to Boston or anything like that. I was there on my own, and I think naturally there's a degree of loneliness that occurs as a result. And so that title came to me that way. But
I see.
Yeah, I think titles are important.
Well, true. And as you say, I keep wondering about that, because I've written only one instrumental song, and I scattered most part of it, and I just called it Easy Busy, and because it's like a very easy to play song, but it remained busy throughout, but there are some very well-known songs that you could just tell why the writer or the composer gave it the name. Like Take 5, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take 5. Diane Reeves has this song called 9, and it's in 9. Have you 4 by Miles Davis?
Sure. Absolutely.
I don't know. It's 4.
Yeah, maybe that has something to do with it as well. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So you were talking about moving to Boston, and I see you don't have a Boston accent and you don't have a New York accent. So let's go back to the very beginning. Where are you from?
I'm originally from Melbourne, Australia.
Oh, awesome.
And I moved to Boston, when I was 21.
Okay.
And I lived there for a little while, and then moved to New York not long after that.
Okay.
But I grew up in Melbourne, and had a very nice life. It's a beautiful place. And we always had music playing in our house. My mum and my dad, both avid music listeners.
I see.
And my mum played music when she was much younger. And we certainly always had jazz playing in the house. And, the earliest recollection of hearing music in my life is actually hearing George Benson when I was probably about 4 years old. And, our house was, it wasn't very small, but it was slightly small when we were growing up. So my dad would keep his record player in the attic. But then sometimes he'd bring it down stairs from the attic, and would get these records out and, you know, show my brother and I, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was exciting when we were little kids and we'd see that.
Yeah.
And I remember Breezin' by George Benson was the album. Yeah, it's a classic, man. I still listen to it and love it to this day. And I remember seeing the photo on the back cover of George sitting with a guitar, and I thought it was the coolest thing, you know, I'd seen, and it still is really cool. And I still remember the way the guitar sounded when I was like very, very little. I think it wasn't, I didn't really pick a guitar up till I was 10, but it definitely made a lasting impact on me. Yeah.
When did you decide you would do music?
Yeah,
professionally or semi-professionally, and then professionally.
Yeah. When I was really young, I always felt like I would have some association with music throughout my life, you know.
I see.
I didn't know what though until I sort of discovered the guitar, and by the time I was 12 and I got an electric guitar, you know, I think it was really, I really wanted to do it, you know. I didn't know what that entailed, but I knew that I wanted to do it, you know, for my life. However one can do that, or however you can perceive that as a potential reality when you're 12 years old.
Yeah.
But I sort of went to when I was 15, I went to a performing arts high school.
I see.
And then it started to seem more real. You know, then all of a sudden I was interacting with musicians who were 10 or 20 or 30 years my senior, who were, you know, their job was musician.
Yeah. So you were the little prodigy that come to the bar that everybody is way older than.
Well, it was really fortunate to be able to associate with musicians who are older than me. I think it makes you get certain aspects of your musicianship together in a way that you otherwise might not have been able to when you know, are exposed to people who are more experienced than you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always envy musicians and artists in general who narrow down what they wanted to do in the arts at a very young age, and you seem to be one of them. So
thank you.
I think it makes a huge difference when you convince yourself this is what I want to do. You know, because I'm sure when you were a teenager, you were not the only person only teenager around you who played the guitar.
Sure.
You know? So it's almost like everybody, it's like almost the default instrument that people want to learn, you know, until they want to do something interesting with it. But my question is this: was there a time when you realized, oh, I'm not just another person who plays the guitar?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. You know what? I was never really sure exactly what, or I was never really sure how my playing was perceived by other people, you know.
I see.
Until I got to the US when I was 21, and then people would say to me, wow, you know, you play great, you know, and which people hadn't really said to me in Australia, you know. I wasn't really looking for people to say that, but when I got to the US, I got a better sense of, well, maybe I am on the right path. You know?
But I've heard stories about Australians, though.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, I've heard that you guys don't compliment that easily, or that one way, I don't know, maybe one way of complimenting is by insulting the person. Or, you know, have you heard of the concept tall poppy?
Tall poppy syndrome.
What does that mean?
Well,
that's an Australian term, right?
That certainly is an Australian term. And, you know, I think that Australian culture is really beautiful. I love Australian culture. Yeah. It's a really wonderful place. and people there are kind and wonderful, but there is this thing that we call tall poppy syndrome.
Okay.
And for anyone who doesn't know what
maybe
that
you are
is,
becoming the go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's a good thing to talk about.
Explain.
Yeah, it's a cultural phenomenon that definitely exists in Australia, and the reason it's called tall poppy syndrome is it's sort of what it means is if you are a tall poppy, figuratively, someone who aims high, then you get cut down. You get sort of pushed down because get back in your box. You're not better than anyone else. That's the philosophy behind it. And unfortunately, when it comes to people who have aspirations that go beyond
Australia.
Go beyond Australia or whatever sort of normality might be perceived to be, then you're sort of pushed down a little bit, And I personally had aspirations that, involved me going to the US and stuff like that. And, certain people said things to me like, oh, you'll never be able to do that, that's
so interesting.
Yeah, I remember one person in particular, I vividly remember this, looking me in the face and saying, that's only for the good musicians. Why would you go there?
Wow. I didn't know it's that bad.
Yeah, well, it's not it's not entirely bad. I mean, there are some amazing musicians and amazing people in the music scene in Australia. But
was this person a musician?
He was a musician, yeah. And actually a teacher who said it to me, a quite high up educator. Who was a performing musician as well, and that people did say things like that, and it was quite disheartening. It sucked. But I got to America, and people were a little more open. I noticed, people had slightly different attitude in talking about music. It wasn't always, not to say things were sugar-coated, but people were definitely honest. People would say, I like this about your playing, and you need to also work on this. And that was, man, I love that. That's great.
Yeah. Wow. So you went to college in Australia? Melbourne.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
You went to a conservatory?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I went to a school called the Victorian College of the Arts, and
that's a big school. It is well known.
Yeah, it is. And I also went to the high school there as well. From when I was 15. So I spent about 6 years at that school, including high school.
Okay. I now understand.
Yeah. And then I also went to New England Conservatory in Boston, where I
for a master's degree.
For for grad school.
Okay.
And and that was great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I have some deep questions to ask you.
No, please.
You don't have to have a well-formed answer for this. We can just discuss it. Like,
sure.
What motivates you as a musician or as an artist? Because it's not easy at all.
No, it's not.
Every aspect of it, the tall poppy syndrome, the financial aspect of it, and then you have to practice, you have to be good, and your being good doesn't guarantee success. Like, what keeps you going? Because a lot of people, I know some people who are good, maybe not as good as you, but some of them they've given up, because they just can't hang. So.
Sure, yeah. I mean, and to be perfectly honest with you, I can understand that.
Yeah.
If someone gave up because they couldn't hang, that can happen for a number of reasons, I mean, let's talk about the financial side. I mean,
Yeah.
being a musician in New York City in 2017 is hard.
It is.
It's hard, you know. Anyone who lives here knows that the cost of living is difficult.
Yes.
People come up with all sorts of creative ways to afford to live here. And I think the reason that people continue coming here and continue trying to work out ways to live here is because there's still so much sort of fertile artistic ground.
Yes. And you get to meet other people, you know.
Absolutely, you know. You get to meet like-minded people.
Yes. Yeah.
Who understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yes,
it
is.
It's sort of it almost makes up for the fact that if you're broke, you know, this side of it makes it all worth it.
Yes,
you know?
yeah. And I feel like in New York too, you are challenged because you have other talented people who are here, and then a lot of other talented people from other parts of the world who stop by here. So it keeps pushing you to the point that sometimes when you leave New York and you go to a smaller city to play, you feel like really appreciated. You know?
You absolutely do.
Yeah.
You really do. And you go to a small city, and not to say that people don't appreciate you in New York, but it's sort of like in New York you're amongst such an amazing array of artists that there's a lot of people who are also trying to do similar things alongside you,
True.
At the same time. So then you go to a smaller city and or a city, let's say, on the other side of the country or something like that, and people really come out to hear you play and really appreciate you, and that's fantastic. You know what I mean?
True.
But I mean, surviving as a musician, I mean, what I will say is that there's a lot of things that they don't teach you about being a musician while you're in school. You know? It's just something as simple as writing an invoice, you know.
Writing what?
An invoice to get paid, you know.
True.
You know, how much to charge for recording sessions. You know, how much to charge for gigs. How much to charge when you're new in town and you want to make sure you get hired again.
Exactly.
You know,
or when to play for free.
or when to play for free and just suck it up and keep going, you know. And you know, I think to some extent you've got to be strategic about that yourself and try to strike a balance between doing something for free and okay, well, now I'm going to start charging because it's time to do that, and I'm also hungry, so you know.
Yes, yeah. Do you also teach?
I do, I do teach. Yeah,
Okay.
I actually love teaching. To be honest, I think that you know, at the end of the day, we're all musicians trying to, you know, find things out musically, discover new ideas and break some sort of new ground in the best case. So I love discussing music with people who come to me as students.
Nice.
I love it.
Most of your students, I bet, are advanced students. Are they?
Yeah, most are advanced students.
Okay.
I sort of I mean, honestly, I'd be happy to teach just about anyone, but most are advanced students.
Yeah, I see. Wow. All right, let's run it up with a fun segment. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a game. This game is called Turn Up and Mute.
Turn up and mute. Okay.
It's a difficult game, so you have all the time in the world. Think strategically before you give your answer.
I'm scared.
Right. So if you like something, then I'll give you two options.
Okay.
Or two choices.
Yeah.
One of them, you turn it up. The other, you have to mute it.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't mean that you hate the one that you have to mute. It's just for the moment, how you feel at the moment.
Okay.
You know, you turn this one up and you mute it. Maybe tomorrow you might turn the other one up and mute the one you turn up now. All right. Okay. You got it?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
All right. Turn up and mute. George Benson, Terri Lyne Carrington.
Oh, turn it up, I guess you'd say.
Turn who up and mute who?
Oh, that's what you mean. Yes. Oh man. Nah, man, I gotta turn both up. I can't mute either of them.
You can mute either of them. It's just for now. It's just for now. Like at this moment.
At this moment.
At this moment. I told you.
Okay. Well, I was listening to one of Terri's albums the other day, so I would turn that up right now.
Oh, you turn that up right now.
Temporarily
okay, cool.
mute George. But,
all right, good.
But only for a minute. I need
diplomatic
both.
answer. All right. New York, Melbourne. Which one are you gonna turn up now, or which one are you gonna mute?
I would have to turn up New York because I'm
here.
in New York, and I would temporarily mute Melbourne.
All right.
Temporarily.
All right, you ready for this one?
Sure, yeah.
Winter song, Lonely City.
Ah, okay. Off my recording. You know what? Because we're going into the colder part of the year. We're going into the colder part of the year here, so let's turn up Winter Song and mute Lonely City.
All right, good. Very good answers. Very well thought out diplomatic answers. Ben Euson, this has been great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you,
I hope we get to do it again. I'm looking forward to your upcoming album. You're working on an album.
We're working. Yeah. I am working on a new album with a project called ACE, which is an acronym for Abade, Claffey, Eunson, with the drummer Kush Abade, bass player Alex Claffey, and myself. And it's coming together. You know, it's sounding good so far. And
I'm looking forward to it. I'll look for it. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. Please let me know if it comes out. I'm serious.
I'll let you know. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it too. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Yeah. Later.
Thank you.